Welcome back to A Plus Parents, everyone. And I've got a special treat for you today because, um, you know, it, I got a chance to meet Eric and his wife, Kaylee Roberge. And I'll make sure I say that right, Roberge. Like you said, like with the Bears, Roberge. Okay, Roberge. I think it's even a better way to say that. It's super cool. But here's what you want to know about Eric. Maybe not pronouncing his last name, but what you want to know about Eric is he is a certified financial planner. And wait till you hear this resume. So just super exciting to hear what he's going to share with us today and some questions we want to talk to him about what does it look like and, in creating your wealth management strategies, but not only just for what you're doing currently, but legacy, what you want to do generationally for yourself, for your family, and for families to come. So first of all, though, let's just see so you know a little bit about Eric. So wealth management, he has his own wealth management firm. And while you're seeing this video, if you see the video version of this, what you may not know is he's been at this for over 20 years. He doesn't look like that. Somebody said, wait, you look awfully young, right? But he really has been doing this for over 20 years. And he works primarily with people, professionals in their 30s and 40s that using money as a tool, really to design a life they love. And then that for now and in the future. But he also deals with everybody, everywhere, wherever they are. So you take that 2 decades of experience from the financial industry that he was in, and then creating Beyond Your Hammock. And I love that name. So Eric, you have to tell us here about how you came up with the name Beyond Your Hammock. But he has a planning style that, customizes with his clients. But I want you to know a little bit about him because he knows already, especially our families, our homeschool families, we're busy. We're doing things. Life is just going, 100 miles an hour, right? And then sometimes that's the last thing we think about is, oh my gosh, I've got to make sure that my finances and my wealth is being preserved, managed, and taken care of, that it's in a growth situation as opposed to either stagnant or doing less than stagnant. So we don't want that. But think of this. You ready? Eric's been featured in the Wall Street Journal, Market Watch, Entrepreneur Magazine. He's been named to Investment News, the 40 under 40, the list, as well as Investopedia's top 100 market influential advisors. He writes for, right, here you go, Business Insider, Forbes, and Kiplinger, and he has his own podcast called Beyond Finances. So, man, that's quite a resume, Eric. So first of all, welcome to A Plus Parents, and just super excited you're here. Anything I left out? Anything else you want to share with us about you?
Yeah, I mean, we're in the Boston area. I think that's an important piece to this. We love the city. We moved outside for the past couple of years, but we had to come back because we like the energy, the busyness of the city. And Boston there's no better place, really.
Okay, so does that automatically make you a Red Sox fan? Does that just kind of come with it? If you live there, you're a fan? Is that how that happens?
It's an automatic, yes, but I will say that the Bruins are my team. Last night, they had the 100-year anniversary of the team itself. They had all these old-time Bruins coming back, like Bobby Orr and Johnny Busick. It was an amazing night that we went to last night.
Oh, that's awesome. Okay, so I actually know those names, and I'm not a huge hockey guy. I grew up in Florida, and so growing up in Florida, I was still am diehard Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, right? And so I was at their very first game that they ever won at home, and that was I think it was in 1978, and I was there. I was a teenager, and it was pretty exciting. That was their second year in the National Football League when they finally won a home game. So to be a diehard fan, yeah, I kind of have been with them all these years, right? So that's good. Well, let's start with the name of your company because I love that. So there's Beyond Your Hammock. How did you come up with that name? I think it's a great name.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the major pieces of criteria for us to come up with the name was that I didn't want someone to have preconceived notions about what we do. So Roberge Wealth Management or Investment Advisor LLC, everybody has their own idea and notions about, well, what does that mean you do? And usually they say, well, it's Morgan Stanley, it's Merrill Lynch, you do the same thing as the brokers do. And there's just so much more to it than that. And rather than having to back them out of their thought process, I can start fresh because they say, do you sell hammocks? And I say, no, but let me tell you about what we do. And really, it's just about living beyond societal norms. So your audience here is going to understand this. Like, society says you should do this. I don't agree necessarily that you have to do what the crowd does. So let's open it up and say, what do you want to do? So living beyond your hammock is just living the way that you see fit and using your money to support that system.
Wow. Okay, that's very cool. I'm already engaged and intrigued, right? So, so knowing that you're kind of that out of the box kind of looking, and a lot of your clients are coming from there. Our families, they are definitely in that world because they took on something that was not always the norm. It's becoming a little more popular in the world of homeschooling now. But when you think about like what it was like and the decisions we make, and that it's like it takes an incredible amount of courage for people to take on and be a homeschool family. So when you're first meeting clients, like what is it you do to determine financial planning priorities? Like how do you evaluate that with people?
I think there's two pieces that we look at first. One of them is the financial aspect. So if you were going to pick out a car, what would you do? You turn the car on, pop the hood, see how it's running, right? So we want to do the same thing for someone's finances. What do you have in the bank? Do you have any investments? Do you have any debt? How much money do you make? How much money do you spend? That's just what's going on, the facts, right? That gives us a good grounding mechanism there. But then we look at what you want, which can be very expansive if you start to really think deeply about what life could look like. And only when we really identify those reach type goals can we stretch the horizon in a way that says, here's what we ideally want life to look like. Here's what our finances look like today. Let's connect the dots in a way that works for us. And that's the beginning of the conversation.
Oh, that's great. That always comes back to, you look under the hood, right? And one of the things that I think a lot of times often for people, and I know I was in that category myself for a long time, and it was like saving money, and it's like, and it always seemed like one of those things that you would get around to someday, and but someday doesn't always show up when you think it's going to show up. So when you look at like the need for saving every year to achieve goals in both now and the future, so what is it like? Do you have like a kind of like your secret sauce or a recipe for people about what do we really need to do for saving so that we can achieve those goals and live that life we want to live?
I think the secret sauce isn't all that secret, and it's pretty basic. But what it is making sure that you identify the amount of your gross income annually that you should be putting aside and not spending now. And that money gets put into maybe a down payment on a home in a few years. It gets put into retirement savings to grow for the future. But what it also does is prevent you from spending it. So if you have 100% of your income coming in and you save, I don't know, 15, 20%, then the rest of it can be spent because you've already targeted the savings. So it's the one, I didn't create this phrase, but the one budget plan, the one number budget. You save this and you spend the rest.
Oh, I like that. That's really great. And because I think what happens for most people is they do the reverse. Like they go in and they look at all their expenses and they spend everything, and then they see what's left over and they say, okay, well, that part I'll save. But you're doing it in reverse, which, by the way, I think is brilliant, right? Is to do what? Is to save it first, and what you have left over, then you have that. I'm like, oh, that's a great strategy, right? It's a really great strategy. And, I think the other thing it does for people is it starts to give them to build a muscle with creating the discipline for themselves. And that muscle can be used in all areas of life, but what a great place to start with your own finances and your own future. So, that's really cool. So, all right. So now, our families, they have children, and some of them have several children. And so how do you balance that desire, because our homeschool families, and they're out, and they're traveling, they're taking their kids to different places and giving them different experiences. So there's that desire to experience things now with our kids, right? But there's also the need to set ourselves up for a secure future. So how do you coach people? How do you share with people about how to create that balance?
It's not easy, right? And I think it really takes not only one conversation, but years of conversations to get into, like you said, habit forming, right? You're building the muscle. And so talking about what you value in life now and what you strive to value as a family is really important. Because some people would say, you know what, I really value freedom, and therefore I want to spend as much as possible now to give myself that feeling of financial freedom today. But you're the same person today. Well, you're not the same person today as you're going to be tomorrow, but there's probably some rhyming there. And if you value freedom today, I'm going to guess you value freedom tomorrow. And if you spend everything today on this freedom, you're not going to be free tomorrow. So how do we balance the two so that you can feel pretty free today because you're spending on what you value most, but you're pulling back on the things that you value less, like you're not spending on those things, and you're putting that for the future so that you can then be free in the future and spend on what you value then.
It's funny. As you were saying that, it just brought me back to the formula, right? Like it's actually like save first, spend everything else, right? You know that that's taken care of, it's done. And it's interesting because the first thing I think of is how much freedom I have if I know that what's left over is what I can spend, and I can spend it on whatever I want, knowing that I've done what I've done the first step, which was do the saving part first. So it's great. It just ties right back to the, right back to the formula, right? Which is a great formula. And then you're going to work with people on what number is that? What percentage of that? How does that look? Even for people that like they want to they want to look at like there's building their generational wealth. And, I think sometimes people look at that and they think, well, I'm going to have to wait until I have achieved X, Y, or Z. Like, maybe it is buying that first house, or kids are getting to college, or, all those different things. Well, when the kids are finally out of the house and they're going, okay, then I'm going to start looking at this, right? So, there is that, I guess the best way to say it is, how do people really start where they're going to start building and creating that generational kind of wealth?
I think it's paying attention to the present moment and the feelings you have around your current financial circumstances, and saying, do I want my children to be in the same position? And if not, what would I wish is different? And can I use my money and my savings to change that for them? Some people say, yeah, I want to do that. Other people say, no, they'll figure it out just like I did, which either way is fine. But a lot of times it comes up with student loans, right? If you go to college and you have student loans and you can't save money until you're 45 years old, and you say, I never want my kids to experience that, so you want to give to them. You just really just got to understand that kind of thing. It's being very intentional about how you think about and use your money. And people, your audience is going to know this. Like there's an intentionality behind homeschooling, right? You don't just wing it, I would imagine, right? You
Right.
might feel like you're winging it in the beginning, but like you're building a system in, and you're building that muscle up. And so if you're intentional about your homeschooling, the world's your oyster. If you're intentional about your money plan and always having conversations and evolving that, because it's not just a one-time thing, then you're going to get to where you need to go.
That's great. Our homeschool families, one of the things that they always come into homeschooling with, and then along the way, sometimes it gets forgotten, for people, and it is their why. Why are you doing this? Why you're homeschooling? What difference is it going to make? And what's interesting is that we notice that oftentimes, as homeschool families, we get to that part where you get tired, you get frustrated, you kind of burn out, and you're kind of like, oh, and if we get brought back to the why we're doing it, the why elevates us, and it brings back that intentionality that you're talking about, where it's like, hey, we get intentional again. Do you notice that with people when they start a plan and they're super excited about it, they got their why, and do they ever feel, kind of get to where they get that burned out, like, oh, I can't do this anymore, but I know I'm going to be saving 15% or 10% or 20%, whatever it is, but just this one time, I need to not do that. And then that one time leads to the next time, leads to the next time. I'm guessing that you probably run into that from time to time. But how do you get people back to their why when it comes to their building their wealth and their wealth management?
Well, there's a consistency, right? The consistency of making these decisions year in and year out is really important. And I'm going to get to your question, but the ability for you to say, let's say you're saving for 10 years and you're doing a great job, and you're feeling like in the 11th year, you know what, I just don't want to do it this year. I have other priorities I need to shift to, and therefore I can't save as much as I thought I was going to be able to save. If you've been doing it for 10 years and you plan on doing it again afterward, you have the ability to swing out and do something different and spend the money. Maybe you don't save a dime in year 11, and you really explore and understand what you enjoy, and you experience that, and then you come back. So I think it's always important to experience things along the way, even if you're bending the rules of your savings plan, but on average over time, you're saving the right amount, right? So back to your question of like just you're worn out, or you've lost your way about your why. And I think you just got to remind yourself that, because a lot of times people will say, yeah, I'm saving. What am I saving for again? Or say, well, here's what you said. Let's revisit that, because maybe what you said isn't what you feel now. That's okay too. Maybe it is. Maybe you just reconnect with your why and you're good. Maybe your why 5 years ago isn't your why now, and we have to recalibrate and just talk about what's the new why. Let's refresh that and get motivated again to move on from here. Because all we have is here forward when it comes to being in control of our life. We can't change the past, so it doesn't really matter from a financial perspective what happened yesterday. It's all about tomorrow.
Oh, that's so great. And you opened up the space for people to have freedom with their plan. Because I think so many times, we think about, there's a, like, I don't know why, but going to the dentist is not my favorite thing to do. Right. I'm just one of those guys, and I have great teeth. Right. So it's like, it's just kind of funny. The dentist always laughs at me and he's like, all right, come back in a year. I'm like, okay, great. A year. I can manage that. Right. But, there's the, I think sometimes people get that same thing. They meet a certified financial planner. They meet someone like you that's a wealth management consultant, and they might have that kind of dentist feeling, like it's like, oh, but if I talk to him, he's going to make me do this, and it's like every time I go to the dentist, he's going to make me floss and he's going to make me do it. Right. And, so, for people, it's taking that first step of finding someone who is a professional in the field. And I think for sometimes having that coach, having that mentor is kind of takes some of the pressure off for people as well. But, like for people to take that first step, what would you say for people that they may not have a plan? They're a little bit nervous about that. They have that dentist feel like, I don't want to do this, knowing that it's a good thing to do. Like for me, I know it's a good thing to go to the dentist. I just don't like to do it. Right. What would you encourage people that this might be new for them, especially some of our younger families, or some of our older families where they're looking, where they're like, oh my gosh, it's like I missed the time, I missed the mark, and I should have been doing this and I didn't, and now they feel like they can't. So is there, for people to go ahead and take that first step to get involved and start that process, what do you say to people to kind of get them off the fence to really step in and take this on?
I say that I want to acknowledge that it is a daunting thing, right? Just I think about me being in a field where I'm not the expert, and specifically, like I'm a big fan of Peter Attia. I don't know if anybody's heard of Peter Attia, but he's a doctor, and he wrote the book Outlive. And it's about just longevity planning and just really being healthy throughout life. And I always wanted to find a doctor like him. And I have no clue how to look in, even in Boston, where all the doctors are. I have no clue how to find someone like him, right? So it's just really hard. So I think it's just to understand, firstly, like, what is the criteria? Well, what are you afraid of? Right? What is your biggest concern about speaking with a financial advisor? Is it, well, they're gonna sell me something? Okay, well, go to a person that does not sell products, right? There's fee-only planners. I don't sell products, so I'm not going to give you a product. That eliminates that fear. Well, I don't know. I don't trust anybody. Well, okay, well, that's a tough one. But you're going to have to start somewhere. So like eliminate the people you don't want to talk to by looking for a certified financial planner, by looking for a fee-only advisor who's not selling products. That's going to narrow down the world. And then you got to reach out and talk to people and say, do you work with people like me? And show me some examples of how you've done that. Because an advisor could be a great advisor for a 65-year-old. That doesn't mean he's a great advisor for a 35-year-old. And if he's not working, or he or she's not working with the younger folks, then maybe you shouldn't, as a younger person, work with them, and vice versa. Right. Wow. So there's an advisor for everybody out there. There's a lot of websites like Fee Only Network and NATFA, which is the North American Personal Financial Advisor Association. There's XY Planning Network, all these places that have the ability to search for independent advisors. And you can search by all kinds of criteria: who they work with, how they charge, where they work, is it virtual, is it in person? And you can narrow it down pretty good. And then with a short list of 5 people, it's a lot less overwhelming than saying, there's thousands out there, where do I go?
Right. Oh, that's really great. And I went on and I was listening to a couple of your podcasts, just kind of was like, get to know you a little more, and, the information you present is great. And you do it with your wife, which is really awesome. You guys get to, kind of share about your experiences and what you have available for people. But even that, like just taking some time to, go to your website, listen to some podcasts, kind of find a topic that is, relates to wherever a person is, and that they get to know you a little bit. And I think that takes away some of the fear as well. Like they can see that you're out there and you're sharing with people, and you're sharing with people because you have a message to deliver. Not that you're, like you said, like trying to sell product, right? You're actually really committed to people really living that life that they can get beyond the hammock, right? Which I really like that and appreciate that about the podcast the couple that I got to listen to already. And it's great too, because, for people that, you kind of pointed to that every investment advisor is going to have what they specialize in. And for someone that, they're finding the right fit. So I think that's really great. People can find that, that you're the right fit for them, someone else is the right fit for them, but that they could go in and do that. So for people to begin that discovery about the right fit, if they wanted to reach out to you, how do they do that? Because I know there are people now who's going like, okay, Boston's kind of a ways from where we are, but they can still reach you anyway, right?
Yeah, I mean, COVID was a terrible situation for the world, but it really forced a lot of people to go online. And so we are 100% virtual. We have the ability to meet in Boston, but all of our clients want to meet conveniently over the internet. So it doesn't matter where you are. So beyondyourhammock.com is the website, and our website's built to be the hub of all the information that we provide. So the podcast is on there, the blogs are on there. There's a button that says work with us, so you could understand how that process works and what it costs. So everything is right there for you if you want to check it out.
Oh, that's awesome. That's really great. Well, we're going to have all your links in the show notes so people know how to get in touch with you and find out more, which is awesome. And thanks today, really, because, for me, it's like I've talked to financial planners before, investment advisors before, and there was a lot of freedom in what you were sharing. And it was, because oftentimes you talk to them and they're like, no, you have to do, this is it, X, Y, Z, and that's it. And that's what you're going to do. And there's no deviating from the plan. But you really kind of ease my mind a little bit as well, because it's like, but because plans change, and situations change and circumstances change. But you pointed to something else, which I think is really, really important, is that building that muscle. And that once you build the muscle, if you go away, you can come back. It's like people that go to the gym, right? And for some reason, something happened, you travel, you had an injury, something happened, you know what there is to do. And then it's just getting back in the gym and getting back to work again. So, so thanks for that, because that made a difference for me as well. And I know for our listeners too. So it's really great. Well, so I hope people have a chance to get to beyondyourhammock.com. Check it out, see what Eric and his wife are up to, find out more about how they do things. Definitely check in on their podcast, get as much information as you can. And all of the places that you do your writing for, is that also on the website too? I know there's a blog on there too, but your articles, are they linked up there as well?
Not all articles are linked up there, but I believe the actual publications are there.
Oh, great. Okay. Yeah, I know there was such a tag at the bottom of the website. I'm like, oh my gosh, I was thinking these were like, super, very, what's the best way to say, gives you a lot of kudos and credentials, right? For people to see the kind of caliber of a certified financial planner that you are, but also the kind of publications you work with. So it was really great. I was excited to see that myself. All right, well, that's great. And Eric, if it's okay with you, I would love to come back and do this again. Maybe we can kind of like zoom in on a particular topic. Maybe some of our listeners, if you're listening and there's something more you want to hear from Eric, let us know. And then we can, we'll have Eric come back on again and talk more about what he's up to and what he's preparing for people. If you're open to that, Eric, we'd love to have you come back and do this again.
Yeah, that sounds great. I mean, I love the rabbit holes that these conversations take you down. And if we're just able to just fully go into one, I'm all there.
Okay, that's awesome. Well, everyone, thanks for tuning in to A+ Parents. Eric, thanks for making your day work to be here. And everyone, we'll see you next time. Thanks, everybody. Bye.